KPBS.com/tellthemyes.
We need to get below ground. Now!
My name is Agatha Christie. My manuscript has been stolen by one of you. This situation is getting out of control.
What now?
We find out who's behind all this.
Stream now with KPBS Passport on the PBS video app. Turn to KPBS for all the news you need.
The San Diego County Board of Supervisors voted to provide another round of aid to small businesses.
San Diego's trusted news source. Weeknights starting at 4 on KPBS. You're watching KPBS, a broadcast service of San Diego State University. Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, December 10th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The votes are in. Local elected leaders have adopted a 30-year transportation plan per mileage proposal. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen with a look at the party line vote.
The plan invests heavily in public transit, with added bus services planned in the next 5 years. Further into the future, it envisions new high-speed commuter rail lines and managed lanes on freeways open to carpoolers and solo drivers willing to pay a toll. Democratic mayors and city council members praised the vision from the planning agency SANDAG. Here's County Supervisor Nora Vargas.
Advancing mobility choices is a top priority for me, especially because our region for far too long has not invested in transit and active transportation options. These decisions in the past have left our transit-dependent communities and communities of color behind since day one.
All Republicans on the SANDAG board voted against the plan, saying it was too expensive and left out car-dependent rural and suburban communities. Coronado Mayor Richard Bailey says the investments in transit are wasteful.
It sets the stage for taxing people that cannot afford it, for a service they will never use or benefit from. And this is anything but equitable.
The plan's most controversial element is a proposal to charge motorists 2 cents for every mile driven in the county. That wouldn't happen until 2030, and voters would have to approve the fee. But the policy proved too unpopular, and board members asked SANDAG staff to work on removing it from the plan within 6 months. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A second Omicron variant of COVID case has been identified in San Diego, but this time county health officials say it's believed he contracted it locally. The latest case was first detected through the expedited COVID identification environment lab at UC San Diego. The patient, a man in his 30s, did not have a travel history and had mild symptoms. He was fully vaccinated and had received his booster shot more than 2 weeks earlier. The CDC says most Omicron patients identified across the U.S. were vaccinated and had mild symptoms. Voters will have to wait a little longer for a decision on where lines will be drawn for supervisor districts. The county's independent redistricting commission had planned to vote on a final map last night. More now from KPBS reporter John Carroll.
The process of redistricting, redrawing lines for all sorts of governmental entities, starts with the census. Redistricting commissions take that data and try to redraw lines to best represent neighborhoods and communities of interest, which includes areas with common geographic, economic, or cultural interests.
The problem we've all been facing is that the 2020 census which is the basis for all the data we need, was delayed in releasing its data.
So the nonpartisan Independent Redistricting Commission has only had a few months to pull everything together. Hundreds of people showed up at Thursday night's meeting. The biggest point of contention, as shown on this draft map, centers around moving El Cajon into a district comprised of communities to the west. Much of the city's large Chaldean community said they want the city to stay in an East County district. But Chairman Boehm says there is disagreement even within the Chaldean community.
Others say, with similar backgrounds, we believe we ought to be located in a more central district.
Chaldean community leader Mark Arabo says he's heard from people on both sides, and he has the same advice for everybody.
Register to vote, organize your communities. It's an independent commission, and hopefully a balance will be met. This is the American process.
Lillian Serrano represents a group lobbying for the interests of the Latinx community in the North County. She says they love the new map, specifically the fact that Escondido is included, along with other North County communities like Oceanside, Vista, and San Marcos.
The communities that have majority Latino population or very close to half of the population being Latino altogether, they're also keeping tribal lands altogether under District 5.
The meeting lasted for about 8 hours. The commission will meet again tomorrow. They are required by law to have the final map and the report that goes with it submitted by next Wednesday. John Carroll, KPBS News.
A jury has acquitted a former La Mesa police officer for falsifying a police report about his controversial arrest of a black man in 2020. Viral video of that arrest sparked protests that ended in violence. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado has the details.
We, the jury in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Matthew James Dagas, not guilty of the crime.
Some clapped as the not guilty verdict was read in a courtroom where former La Mesa police officer Matthew Dages was tried for one felony count of falsifying a police report about the arrest of Amari Johnson. Dages smiled and was patted on the back by his attorneys. Outside the courtroom, he posed for pictures and celebrated the verdict.
They right here, though. Sit down. Oh, my God.
That arrest at the Grossmont Trolley Station was caught on camera, circulated on social media, and triggered a weekend of violent protests in May of 2020.
As a mother of a black son, I feel for the mother of Amari Johnson.
Dages' happiness is not shared by San Diego NAACP President Francine Maxwell. She's been observing the trial and got a call immediately following the verdict.
I'm very upset because although we keep having conversation, nothing changes.
She says it's hard to believe that the video evidence and a La Mesa PD investigation that got Dages fired could not convince a jury to find him guilty.
That jury was rigged from the beginning. This judge, she called them the reluctant 15. So as a judge, she knew that they didn't want to be there. So how open were they to listening to the evidence? How open were they to listening to all the testimony?
Maxwell says this verdict doesn't mean the end. Johnson filed the civil rights lawsuit against the La Mesa Police Department, Dages, and 6 others. That case was put on hold pending this verdict.
This too shall pass. There is another lawsuit that they have filed, and we're looking forward to a different outcome.
She says she understands there is anger and frustration, and some will want to gather and exercise their right to protest, but she urges vigilance and calm.
We do not condone violence. We support peaceful protests.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
A protester in San Diego is now free after being acquitted by a jury. He had been charged with 19 felonies. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregeser says activists see the jury's decision as a rebuke of attempts to intimidate protesters.
Denzel Drawn was protesting police brutality in downtown San Diego and was arrested last August. His charges were seen as unusual and severe. 19 felonies for using tear gas on San Diego police officers and resisting arrest. But now he's been found not guilty. Drawn's attorney told the jury he was acting to defend another protester who was being punched and kicked by police.
There was also an assault on a vulnerable protester when he was on the ground, and Officer Whitliff or Whiteliff held him from behind, bear hugged him.
The fact that Drawn was charged with so many felonies and initially held on $750 million bail was meant to send a message. So says Ann Rios, a defense attorney.
And it starts to make us wonder whether or not this bail amount was appropriate. Or was it simply to punish people?
She says the charging decision could be seen as an attempt to stifle protests.
And especially when it comes to the protests of last year that were calling for defunding the police and for Black Lives Matter.
The San Diego County District Attorney's Office and the San Diego Police Department had no comment on the decision. Drawn says the jury's ruling sends a message.
Without struggle, there's no progress, and there was progress made with the verdict today through the struggle that happened.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Federal and local officials have deployed high-end technology to police in Chula Vista. Now the city is adding a real-time operations center. Privacy advocates say the plan is fraught, especially for people of color. In the second of a two-part series, KPBS's Amita Sharma has more.
Every day, Chula Vista Police Department's 4 license plate readers mounted on patrol cars randomly take pictures of passing and parked vehicles' license plates and then store the digits. The agency also daily deploys drones across the city to give it a live view of scenes of 911 calls.
Again, with armed with a black handgun and foot on foot.
The police department has now built a real-time operations center that sews together its data.
What you see here is essentially a very large TV screen.
That very large TV screen Chula Vista Police Captain Eric Thunberg refers to contains 12 smaller screens with up-to-the-minute information, some of it basic, like community social media posts about suspicious activity, some of it high-tech.
If there was a drone flying to a call or DFR program, you could see the footage there. We can display our CAD system, our dispatch system here. We have some crime statistics that are displayed here.
He says the new $550,000 one-room operations center is about efficiency.
When something happens, we're not running down the stairs, running over to a crowded office, standing and getting in the way of the watch commander who's answering phones.
It's also about quick access, again in one place, to context like jail records and open source resources like Google Earth.
We're going to look and see, have we been to that location before? We're going to look and see, has there been history? Are there other crimes here? We're going to look and see who may have committed that crime.
Ultimately, he says Chula Vista residents will benefit from the new operations center, which is 80% complete.
Our public deserves the best response that we can give them.
City officials who promote these technologies often speak in terms of certain public goods. They'll emphasize efficiency, they'll emphasize convenience.
That's local ACLU lawyer Mitra Ibadolahi. She says the public good also includes personal privacy and civil rights, something that she says is being stripped away by these policing tools.
These technologies just keep building on each other and overlaying each other, and we end up with a massively surveilled part of our community, which again is inconsistent with just living in a free society.
Human rights activist and Chula Vista resident Pedro Rios worries that the crime center will focus on the western part of the city, where most of the area's people of color live.
There aren't any real guard posts to protect someone who's not involved in an incident to also not be victimized by this type of policing.
Thunberg says the city is looking to add oversight, and he contends the angst is more about what the center could do, not what it will do. Chula Vista PD's Real-Time Operations Center contractor, Motorola Solutions, states in documents that the facility has the capacity to do analytics, AI, and facial recognition. Thunberg says those features won't be activated.
We have no interest in that.
But the department's own 5-year strategic plan envisions using predictive policing, which looks at analytics to figure out who might commit crimes.
If we down the road have it, it will be because we've vetted it, we've taken it to the community.
I asked Thunberg whether, as a private citizen, he had concerns about new surveillance tools. He didn't.
I'm not worried about being watched or followed. I don't have anything to hide.
That's the exact wrong way to look at it.
Brian Hofer, executive director of the Oakland-based privacy advocacy group Secure Justice, says the wise way to frame the discussion is that we all have something to protect.
Maybe I don't want to reveal where I live. Maybe I hang out at gay bars, but I haven't come out to my family and friends that I'm in a same-sex relationship.
Chula Vista Mayor Mary Salas says she trusts the police. The operations center is meant to serve the public, not to spy.
I love my police, and I know that they're doing the right thing, and they come from the right attitude.
Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
California regulators could dramatically change the state's biggest in the nation solar marketplace next year. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson explains.
City Heights Courtyard Cottage. Come on, Max, come on. Got my tangerines, got my avocados going here.
Castillo bought this house in the late 1990s when he was still in the Navy. The 61-year-old remembers how cheap electricity used to be.
Bills were about $18 a month, $22 a month at the highest. But that was the way energy was in all the United States. I think we were only paying about $1.20, $1.10 for gasoline at the time.
His electric bill climbed over the years, topping out at about $280 a month. That's why he added solar energy and a new air conditioning unit.
Putting this thing is so quiet, uses about that much energy, that much. Why? Because those beautiful gaseous ball hanging up there in the sky. You know, what gives us energy, gives us warmth, grows tomatoes.
Castillo leases his solar system, so there were no upfront costs. This is one of more than 1.3 million solar rooftop systems installed in California. Nearly 15% of the state's electricity production comes from solar systems like the one on Castillo's home. But the economics of solar could be changing soon. The current state regulations, known as net energy metering, are designed to encourage the move to rooftop solar. They set the cost of electricity sold by residents and include a small monthly fee for fixed utility costs. But that could be changing.
15 years ago, our electric rates were half of what they are today, and solar panels were more than twice as expensive.
The Natural Resources Defense Council's Mohit Chabra is among those asking regulators to roll back the subsidy currently paid to rooftop solar owners. His organization is advocating sharply cutting back how much utilities are required to pay for the electricity generated on rooftops. And he wants to charge a hefty monthly connection fee based on the size of a solar system. A charge could be $40 to $50 a month.
People will still save money. They'll just save less.
The lower buyback charges and flat monthly fees could mean it'll take solar owners 10 to 12 to 15 years to pay off their upfront investment to put the panels on their roofs. Chabra says payback times right now are only about 4 to 6 years.
So if you had solar, for example, you will still, per my estimate, save around 50% of your bill if you size your solar system correctly with our export rate change and with this charge. You just won't save close to 100% because certain fees are fixed fees for maintaining the grid that we all depend on and social costs that I mentioned that are independent of electricity use.
The California Public Utilities Commission is considering more than 70 proposals to adjust the net energy metering rules. The suggestions range from changing very little to ones that call for steep monthly grid connection fees and slashing how much utilities are forced to pay to buy back electricity from residents. Solar advocates say eliminating the financial incentive for residents to spend thousands of dollars installing solar panels could crush demand. That endangers 68,000 California jobs.
It will mean laying off a majority of their workforce or potentially closing their doors.
Karina Gonzalez works for Hammond Climate Solutions, a company advocating for net energy metering to only get small tweaks. She says rooftop solar needs to be encouraged because it's critical to help meet the state's clean air goals.
Less rooftop solar means that we're using more dirty energy, worsening the climate crisis, contributing to climate racism that's in Kern County and where there's fracking in people's backyards. And we just think at a time when there's a climate emergency, we can't afford to be taking away clean energy solutions from families.
California's investor-owned utilities filed their proposed revisions more than a year ago. But San Diego Gas and Electric steers requests for interviews to surrogates like the Natural Resources Defense Council or the Utility Reform Network. The company declined to make an official available for an interview both last summer and in recent weeks. An email statement says the utility is engaged in the formal process. Quote, "We are eager to see a resolution that allows the solar industry to continue to thrive and addresses existing inequities." End quote. The California Public Utilities Commission is expected to unveil their plans to adjust net energy metering soon. That preliminary proposal would be vetted and then voted on by the commissioners early next year. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
We've got a pretty quiet weekend on tap for us, but we are getting set for some heavy rainfall. That's going to be into next week. And boy, not only will mean heavy rainfall, half an inch to maybe as much as an inch across parts of the city, we will also be talking about a very cool rain and mountain snow, and behind that, a cooler trend too. This storm system is going to impact here several locations, but it's actually part of this week-long setup here. So we are talking about not only parts of the Northwest getting some moisture from one wave of energy, we'll see more work its way into our state too, and that's why we're going to get in on the rain. Tonight, though, things are quiet, dry for us, 47 for the low, Oceanside 38, Mount Laguna coming in at 30 degrees, and still pretty clear skies out there. Yes, certainly some chill in the air. That cool air remains through the interior west as we head through your Saturday, and notice where that next storm system is already starting to push in at least some rain into Northern California, but very late in the day tomorrow. So really no impacts for us anytime soon. Sunshine holds us quiet as we go through tomorrow. Temperatures back into the lower 60s, and notice Chula Vista mid-40s for you, or I should say 62 rather for Chula Vista. And as you look towards Mount Laguna, mid-40s, Borrego Springs coming in at 65 degrees. The storm system, again, the next one that comes in, actually moves through California starting on Sunday, the end of the weekend, but we will get most of our moisture, I think, late Tuesday. That's when we're going to see the rain and that risk for even some of our mountains getting some snow. Our forecast for the next couple of days showing actually a very quiet weekend. Clouds will be on the increase, though, for Sunday. Monday, maybe a shower or two as the moisture builds ahead of this next storm system, but the real rain comes in on Tuesday, and then we're cooler back into the mid-50s for the coast. Inland communities, we'll see some rain and drizzle for Monday, but it's really Tuesday again. That's where we get the chilly rainfall and keeping the cool trend then into Wednesday. Mountain conditions, they will have that cooler pattern with rain and temperatures in the upper 30s at times. We'll get some snow developing there as we go through late Tuesday and into Wednesday. And desert locations here also getting in on the rainy action late in the day on Tuesday. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
This week brought a big partnership in the world of fast food. SDSU's Mira Kopik explains why two brands with deep roots in San Diego are joining forces.
Well, Jack in the Box is really looking to expand. You know, they've been fairly stagnant in the 23 states that they're currently in, with about 2,200 stores. And so in the past few years, you know, Jack in the Box has had poor financial performance. They've had a revolt of franchisees. In fact, there was a vote of no confidence with the previous CEO. Innovation slowed down, and the CEO was let go. And so some analysts have looked at this and said, you know, it's a lot of locations in the same general places in California and the Southwest, but really that allows a degree of market strength that Jack in the Box hasn't had. And they're competing against Taco Bell. Taco Bell is about 12 times bigger than Del Taco, and Del Taco is the second largest Mexican chain in the United States. And McDonald's has about 6 times the number of locations as Jack in the Box. This allows Jack in the Box to really leverage their innovation and new product expertise, which they are really known for in the industry, and kind of take a new step forward in expanding where they haven't expanded in over a decade.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, what the Supreme Court's ruling on a controversial Texas law means for abortion rights. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Hi, I'm John Decker. Thank you for watching Evening Edition on KPBS.
Now more than ever, local news is essential to our democracy, and KPBS is committed to delivering local news in San Diego and the Imperial Valley. Evening Edition, along with our other services on radio, digital, and podcasts, is how our news team delivers the news to you. How can we do it? With a passion for accurate storytelling and a commitment to excellence in journalism. But most importantly, we do it with your support, our members, our viewers. If you've already donated to KPBS, then we thank you very much for your continued support. If you haven't had a chance to donate, now is a great time to show how much you appreciate the news we deliver. So please go online and choose a level, pick a gift at kpbs.org, or call or text DONATE at 1-800-576-5727, and thank you.
For some, it wouldn't be the holiday season without the fresh, piney scent of a live Christmas tree in the living room. But this year, that may be harder to come by. KPBS North County multimedia reporter Alexander Nguyen explains.
He said the Normans are over here. Look at them.
If not, I like this one.
Joseph Hoy and his family are at the Pinery Christmas trees lot in Del Mar to pick out a tree.
There's a lot less than there was last year or the year before.
He's not imagining things.
Yeah, the big problem this year is there is definitely a shortage of Christmas trees, 100%. Not so much in the smaller stuff, but in the bigger stuff. Normally this is filled with big trees.
Mike Osborne is the owner of the Pinery. He says part of the reason for the shortage was the extreme heat wave this summer in the Pacific Northwest, where most of the Christmas trees are grown. The heat wave was linked to climate change and sparked several fires.
A lot of the noble fir that were ready to go to market this year, they got burned. And so a lot of trees that were tagged to go to market this year in the Southern California area were not able to go.
Oregon farmers reported losing up to 90% of their crop this summer, according to industry trade group American Christmas Tree Association. Another reason for the shortage? Pent-up demand for Christmas trees due to the pandemic. Because of COVID, last year was a huge year for sales, Osborne says.
Everybody did buy that Christmas tree last year.
After browsing around, the Hoys found their tree. If you do find a tree, expect to pay more. Live Christmas trees costs have nearly doubled since 2015. At the Pinery, small and medium trees are still available, but most of the big trees have been sold. In Del Mar, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Hope you have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Tonight at 8, news analysis from the Capitol on Washington Week. Then key stories from the region with the KPBS news team. And later, follow a complex doctor on Doc Martin. That's tonight on KPBS. KPBS programming is made possible by the members of KPBS and our program underwriters.